So I've been working on some of the pieces that I started the other day, and I was going to share with you a few more things that you can do to make these into something more. So this piece here, which obviously has already been fired, it was a pinch bowl up to about there, and then I added on to it. And so I'm going to do that with this one over here. Of course, a larger pinch bowl can turn into a bowl that you can use for, soup and things like that. This little critter I had been working on, and I've just been adding in features and things like that. It needs a little bit of work, but it's a little soft right now in some of the places. So when I go to work on it, it squishes on me. So I'm gonna let this little guy set up a little bit. He's particularly soft down here, and sometimes working with the clay when it's a little bit drier is a little bit easier. So I might come back to that one in a moment. I did up some little pieces that have finished, both of these finished, and I wanted to show you, you can see the color difference. This one is totally dry, it's not flexible anymore, whereas this one I had wrapped up. So when you are done with your work for the day, if you're thinking you might want to do anything more to it, make sure it's wrapped up well. Use that dry cleaner plastic that you've got, or if you use a grocery bag, I would recommend double bagging it. Beware that if you have it on a porous surface, like a piece of wood, board, or paper, that will absorb some of the water, so you might want to get the bag all the way around it. So this one is basically done. There's not a lot I can do with it, but it does have a few places where I have like little cracks and stuff like that. You can use your wet chamois, and you can come back in on the surface, but be careful. You don't want to get this completely wet. You don't want to sit water in the inside, because if you have water just sitting on the inside, this clay will start to slake, just like our slip does. Any place you put water on it, it'll start to slake, and you can't get away with adding the water without it starting to crack or fall apart. So if you do get any water on the inside, I'd make sure you get it out of there. But this one is basically done then. The only thing I can do now is fire and glaze it. Whereas this one I could keep working on if I want to. Now, I showed you the other day how to use a rib, which I've now lost. There we go. How to use a metal rib. It's always a good idea to keep a wet washcloth or a wet towel around so that you can wipe your tools off. I sometimes wipe them on my pants, but this is better. Keeps the dust down. So for both of these, and actually I'm going to work on this one instead. I'll do this to both of them. But for both of them, using that rib can help you smooth away those little cracks. Again, I would not recommend you do much adding water, because the more water you add, the softer the piece starts to become. Now, the other rib I like to use is the mud rib. This one, if you don't have a mud rib, if you didn't want to buy the expensive rib in the bookstore or online or whatever, you can actually make something that's pretty similar by taking the lid of like a yogurt container or the wall of a milk carton, and just cutting a rounded shape. Make sure you cut it in one smooth cut. If there's any unevenness, it'll cut into it. But it's almost as good as this rib, and it doesn't cost anything. So both of these ribs, either of these ribs, what we're doing is we're pressing the particles of clay down and making them stronger. But I actually am getting this one almost ready so that I can show you how to cut the lid off of this. So I'm going to take my paring knife or my fettling knife. You can see I didn't do a very good job of cleaning my tools. There we go. And I'm going to cut the lid off. So this is a hollow form. Now, if I just cut straight in, I'm going to have a lid that's going to need some work. I'm going to need to add a coil to the inside of it. But if I cut down at a bit of an angle, and particularly if I don't go totally straight, I'm going to be making myself a key and a way for the lid to stay put when it's done. Now, see how squishy my clay is? I would recommend you let this dry a little bit more than I've done. My clay is starting to want to warp a little bit on me. If you wait until it's closer to leather hard, not as dry as this, not bone dry, but closer to leather hard, it's not going to stick. Shoot. Yep, I should have waited. But it'll pop right off of there when it's at the right stage. and you won't have to fuss around like I'm having to do a little bit. Now, if you do cut it too soon and you're not making a video, I'd probably just let it sit out in the air for, 15 minutes or something. But you can see now that I've got this cut. If I've made this unevenly, that's good because then I know how it goes back on there. Now you can also see, if you look inside of this piece, that I have some work to do. That join is visible on the inside. I'm gonna have to get in and smooth that join away. But I can still do that before it gets too dry, right? So you're not gonna wanna cut this when stuff is dry. So I'm gonna smooth that away, and then I'm going to, if I've got any thin spots, I can patch it. If I've got any rips or weak parts,